You've probably started your fractional CMO business for freedom and to choose your clients, work fewer hours, and finally use the experience that you have in a way that feels aligned for you. But somehow your calendar looks exactly like it used to. You've got 5 bosses instead of 1, constant messages, and 0 white space to think. I call this the fractional CMO trap. So today we're breaking down why it happens, the 2 doors that lead you into the trap, and what it actually looks like to build your fractional CMO business the right way. So, what is the fractional CMO trap? This is where you have technically built a business, but in reality, you're still operating like an employee with 5 bosses instead of 1. And it's not because the fractional model doesn't work, because it does work beautifully when it's built right. But it happens so often because of how we think about our value and the beliefs that drive us when we build our business. So these beliefs look like it's faster if I just do it. No one does it as well as I do. If I say no, what will my clients think, or will I look bad? My value comes from what I do. And those thoughts are why so many fractional CMOs and fractionals build themselves a job instead of a business. Thinking that way makes you prove your worth instead of leading and knowing your worth. And when you're proving, you will always be rebuilding the very job, the thing you are trying to escape before. So this way of thinking, these thought patterns really open up 2 different doors. And sometimes you might have done both. So we're going to break those down and talk about how you can kind of back yourself or reshape your business out of those beliefs so that you have something that feels really, really sustainable. Because what we don't want is for you to be in the same place that you were trying to get out of and have built a business where you're so tired, you're overworked, you're burnt out, and you're still not making what you really want to be making. So let's talk about it. Door number 1, scope creep. Scope creep usually starts out really small. Even if you think, oh no, I know what the role of a CMO is, it can happen to anybody. So you're often doing your job, you're leading strategy, leading the team, setting direction, and it's really, really easy to slip into fixing or doing. So you might hear yourself say, oh, I'll just jump in and do this really quickly, or let me just tweak this quick. It's quick if I do it, before we send this thing out, or I'll just hop on this call. Like it's kind of, as my husband likes to say, this phrase, death by 1,000 cuts. That is scope creep, where you think it's just this small thing. But if you really look across your week, across your month, you're probably spending so much time on things that you really should not be doing as a CMO. So sometimes we convince ourselves it's faster or that I'm helping, but what's really happening is you're actually eroding your own boundaries and you're taking work off of other people's plates, and it's at the expense of your sanity, your time, and truly the perception of you in the business. Because once you start being seen as someone who's executing or doing or even project managing, you really start to shift into a whole different category, and you start to be seen as that level of work, and you really will quickly hit an earnings ceiling when you are looked at as someone who executes or project manages. So the end result really here is that you end up being really, really busy and underpaid. And in some cases, your clients will look at you and being like, I don't know why I'm paying what I'm paying for you to do the stuff you're doing. You're an overpaid, glorified marketing manager. So we're going to talk about the fix. There's a framework that I use when I'm thinking about work. And when I look at my clients, there's things you own, things you influence, and things you delegate. So the things you own are the things that only you can do or should do in the CMO seat. So setting strategy, prioritizing for the team, owning and managing KPIs, making sure, marketing's moving the right needle, and unblocking your team where they need it. Then there's things you should be influencing. So you guide, you influence, you oversee, but you're not executing. So this might look like really important messaging, maybe a campaign direction, potentially guardrails on a project, things like that. Really important things you want to make sure you have your eyes on as the CMO. Then there's the things that you want to delegate. So the things that you should be letting go of: writing copy, project managing the team and tasks, breaking down tasks, anything project management related, fixing funnels, grabbing metrics, so anything admin related, going and getting KPIs yourself in the back end of dashboards, like all that stuff. Now, we want you to look at your work from that perspective, and you really want to be spending most of your time in the own category. So you should be spending 80, 90% of your time here in the own category, where it's really you're setting strategy, you're creating strategy, prioritization, all of those types of things, where you're using your judgment, your leadership, your strategic clarity, all of that. Then you have, maybe 20% of your time in the influence section, where you're overseeing, your kind of eyes on really important thing. And I want to mention something here that can actually be a little bit of a slippery slope within this category, is that you want to make sure as a CMO, you're not having eyes on absolutely everything. If you end up getting into a place where you're reviewing and approving and giving feedback on every single email, social post, ad creative, all those types of things, you're going to quickly find yourself so burnt out. What you want to be doing is seeing the higher level direction and signing off on that, and then backing out and getting out of the weeds. So I'll talk about a little story here just to kind of paint the picture of what this looks like. So when I worked at Lululemon, we would do these massive marketing campaigns, and let's just say we were launching like the Align pant or something. Our executive team, the leadership team, even the CMO would see like a sliver of the campaign. Like we would put together a creative concept, some social posts, an email here and there, mock up of a landing page, and show them that. And they would just directionally give feedback on messaging, key messaging, or the overarching brand campaign look and feel. Then once we aligned on that and things felt really solid there, then the team would go and build out the other 99% of, the assets for everything. So they saw, think of it as like a little sampling. You want to see a little sampling of the things that are important, but you do not want to be in all the details, because that is a mess. And what that really requires is the right team setup, because someone needs to look at the details. If you have, and this will be different client to client, but if you have a client who has like totally green, inexperienced person creating their social content, and the content that person's creating is really awful and needs a lot of hand holding to get to a good place, and you don't have, let's say, a marketing manager who's kind of in the middle and can do that, then that's a gap. So you need to say to the client, the solve there would be that you need either a stronger social media person that can execute really strong content with less handholding, or you need that level person who is, I would say, kind of a marketing manager, marketing project manager. And for me, I have had clients had all sorts of different teams set up. There's certainly not one team set up that works really well for this, but I really kind of look at budget and the overarching goals of the company and make my recommendations from that lens. All right, so back to our traps here. Trap number 2, selling your time. A lot of fractionals will package this way, where they will sell time. They'll structure their offers around time instead of value. So they will say things like, you get 2 calls per month, or we have office hours, I'm available Tuesday and Thursday, or you get 10 hours of support, or 4 days a month of my time. And it sounds like a great way to do it in theory, and looks professional, sounds, makes sense. But in reality, what that does is to train your clients to see your time as the product, when reality is you want them to look at the outcomes, the value that you're bringing to the table, and not be so concerned about the time that it takes you. So what happens is when you're selling time, there's so many things that can happen. Is you'll always find ways to fill it, because if you've said you get a day of my time a week, then you're going to fill that. And maybe you're doing things on the Delegate list, or maybe you're doing, getting into every single social media post because you've got this day. And you're going to find yourself, when you're not staying in that lane, the leadership space that you love and, that really lights you up, you're going to be so drained. You're going to find yourself doing things because you've promised the time, you're filling the time. And often you'll also find yourself in meetings for meeting's sake. I used to have my packages structured this way. And I remember having these bi-weekly calls with my clients. And I remember being like, oh, what are we going to talk about on this call? And coming up with things to talk about. And it was not until a meeting with one of my coaches where she said to me, Jess, your clients don't care about number of calls and blah, blah hours and X amount of days and this deck and that deck. They care about the outcome. And the outcome that they want is they want their marketing handled. They want to know someone they can trust is driving marketing forward. making decisions, has a clear plan, and is holding the team accountable. And when that happens, they don't care if they get a deck, if they get 5 meetings or 1. You do what is needed to get the job done, and that is the most important thing. So it was such a reframe for me around how I was packaging and pricing my offers, and such a game changer, because when you're selling hours, when you're selling your time, even if your rates are great, you very quickly will get to a place where you're totally capped out and there's really nowhere else for you to go beyond scaling a team, which I have done. And we can talk about that in another episode, but you can really, really quickly hit a point where there's no more of you to give or sell. So the fix here is to get crystal clear on what you're actually selling. So if we're not selling access, if we're not selling hours or meetings, we are selling our value. And I'm going to walk you through what that is, because it's clarity, direction, focus, leadership, all those types of things. What your clients actually really, really want from you when they say they want someone to lead their marketing is, number one, clarity. So knowing what to focus on and what not to do. Being that sort of calm in the storm of, hey, there's this new channel, this shiny object. You are the person that's like, that doesn't really make sense with our strategy. Or yeah, that actually does. So this is how we'll rejig or reprioritize. You're the clarity, the strategy, right? They're also wanting focus and alignment. So making sure that the things you're doing in marketing are actually all laddering up to bigger goals and a why. So they're needle moving activities, and there's a rationale. You're not just on a channel to be on a channel. Like, you are making sure that marketing's focused on the right things. Then also leading the team. So leadership, someone holding the reins of marketing that they can trust, because before you, it was probably them. When they are trying to straddle the CEO seat and the CMO seat, that is a lot. And it's really hard for that person to step back and be the visionary of their company. And, depending what their role is, also be creative and fulfill on that space, and also be the CMO. It's just a lot going on. So you're coming in as a leader for the team, working with their agencies, working with their internal team, contractors, whatnot, and just making sure that everything is beating to the same drum. And you can just be sharing back how marketing is going at a high level, and they know, they have trust that things are taken care of. So notice here, I didn't say results, because clients will often say they really want results, but I'm always very careful here when I talk about results, because we're owning marketing performance as a CMO. But the thing is, I would never promise somebody, hey, hire me and I'm going to make your company grow. That is always my goal. Always, always. But I would never promise it, because I'm going to be making sure we're measuring the right metrics and tracking everything we need to do when it comes to marketing and sales, but I can't guarantee anything. I'm going to just make sure that if something is off track, I'm doing everything in my power from a strategy perspective, from a team management perspective, to make sure that we're moving things to the right direction. So, reminder, we are not selling our time. We're selling our value, our systems, our frameworks, our leadership of marketing. So once you start thinking that way, the hours, the number of meetings, all of that, it doesn't matter. If you think as a CMO that you want to look at KPIs and deliver a report every month, I love to do that, then that's what you do. It becomes about you asking yourself, what does this client need right now? What does marketing need? How do I show up as the best leader? And you fulfill that way, instead of, I said I would do this deck, or I said I would do this meeting, and okay, what are we going to talk about? It becomes make work and not valuable. So it's really leading from a place of value and what is the most valuable thing I can do and how I can show up here for my clients. And once you do that, and when you get really efficient with your time, this model can become so enjoyable and so scalable, because now you're not tied to hours. You're focused on the right things. And when you're super efficient, you can be taking on actually a handful plus of clients and be making like really great revenue with this one person business. So if you're interested in scaling, though, we can always talk about that at another time. I definitely have scaled my team, and the agency model is another whole separate piece of leverage and scaling who we are as leaders, but that's for another episode. So before we go, I want to give you a quick 30-day reset plan, because if you were listening along to this episode today thinking, oh my gosh, I am in a scope creep place and I have been selling hours, I want to give you a way that we're going to fix this for you. And you do not need to burn your business down. You just need to do a quick audit, and we're going to rebuild how you run a few things. So you have 4 weeks. By the end of the 4 weeks, you're going to feel in control of your time, your boundaries, and how you're working. We're going to make it feel really good. So week 1, I want you to time track everything. Or if you do this already, you can do this retroactively. You can look at last week or the last couple of weeks. I want you to track every single thing you do in your business and for clients: calls, messages, reviews, quick favors, calls, Slack, everything. And for each task, label it as keep. So remember, the keep things are just stuff that you should be doing. So strategy, leadership, decision making, and guide. These are the things where, and maybe if you want, you can do kind of critical and non-critical categories in here, because this is where we're giving feedback, direction, oversight. And again, reminder, this is where I said there can be a slippery slope of getting into a place where you're guiding everything, and that is just way too much. And then delegate. So any execution work for marketing, any admin, both for clients and inside of your business, and then any coordination or project. We're not touching that. No, bye. What we're going to do is we're going to audit. We're going to take a really hard look at where you're spending your time. And we want to make sure that you are spending 80% of your time in the keep section and about 20% in the guide section. And if you're not, then you start to get to a place where you really need to shift some things. So week 2, we're going to pick even just one client to start with, and you're going to have a conversation with them around this time audit that you have just done. And it's going to go something like this. So to get better results for you, to make sure I'm really focused on the right things in your business as a CMO, I'm tightening up how I work. So I really want to make sure that I'm spending my time on the most needle moving activities for your business that's going to really drive results. So this is what this is going to look like going forward. And you'll walk them through what you're going to keep owning, guiding, and where you're going to be delegating. And there might be some stuff you don't necessarily have to get into every single little task. There's probably some pieces that you can just delegate and offload and kind of back yourself out of without having a big conversation around it. But if it's things like less meetings, or maybe they have a bunch of internal meetings that you've suddenly found yourself in, those are the kinds of things you might want to be running by your CEO or client just before you back yourself out of that, to make sure the relationship still feels great. And what you're doing here is you're really just resetting expectations, and it's positioning you back into a leadership role. And you're really coming from a place of, I'm doing this because I want to drive better results. And when I get pulled too far into the weeds, I can't see the forest through the trees. And that means I'm not focused on the right things. And that's not why I'm here. I'm here to really move the needle for you. And this is how I'm going to do that. So now we're going to come to week 3. We're going to shift gears. We're going to look at your model, how you're selling your packages. So I want you to look at your offers, look at your scope in your contracts. And what we're going to do is remove anything that is related to hours or days that they get you, or number of meetings, or even specific deliverables, unless you feel those are an absolute must do, and replace them with outcome-based language, or language that's a little bit more subjective. So for example, in my contracts and my packages, I talk about meetings on an as-needed basis. I don't want to give the impression that I never have meetings. I definitely do. There's deliverables I have for clients. Like, there's lots that I do and deliver, but it's more about coming from the place of, we're not doing things just because we said we would do this thing and this meeting. And I think you know what I mean, where sometimes you're moving through the motions and you're like, oh, this isn't moving any needle. Like, we're just showing up to show up. And when actuality, like, I know if I went and spent my time doing this one thing over here, that would really move the needle. We're going to rejig how you're talking about your offers. And when you're selling to clients, if you have any leads, if you've got some conversations right now, we're really just going to be talking about the things we mentioned before. So clarity and leadership and all of those things that they really, really want. Essentially, you're selling them that marketing is taken care of. It's off their plate. They don't have to worry. Okay. Now, last week, this is the 4th week. What we're going to do is we're just going to kind of step back and have some presence this week around how we're showing up. So looking for anything where maybe that it's fallen through the cracks. Maybe, you pay attention and you're like, oh, actually, do I need to do this thing? I thought this was important, but maybe it's not. Or, hey, I know I said I was going to own this one thing over here and it felt it was something I should guide, but it actually doesn't feel like I need to do this. So this is This is really like we've gone through the first round. This is just us now living out in practice this new way of working and watching for things that we may have missed. Because usually when we do something a first time, we have all these internal biases that are preventing us from seeing everything as it really is. And so once you start doing this in practice, you're going to see all the stuff I didn't realize that was there. And I could probably pull this away and probably take that off my plate. And this is really just your reset, a pull back, and really look at things objectively one more time and do a second culling of all of your tasks to get to a place where you're really working from a leadership perspective and doing the stuff that you should just be doing as a CMO and not promising things just for promising's sake. So if this felt like, yes, this is me, oh my gosh, I'm in the CMO trap, then I want to know in 30 days how you're feeling, how you're doing, because you can completely reset how you work. And I say this because I've done it. You can have fewer meetings, clear boundaries, stronger positioning around what you do and the value that you bring. And you can create a business as a fractional CMO that actually feels amazing. So you do not need to be crazy busy. This model can feel so spacious, and you don't have to be doing everything, just the right things. So when you stop proving your value with hours and you start owning your value through clarity, direction, leadership, that is when your whole business model can change. And your clients will actually get better results because you are less busy and you actually have time to think like a good CMO. Your time becomes yours again. You're recharged, you're replenished, you're feeling good, and your business starts to feel like the one you initially wanted to build. Good luck, and I can't wait to hear how it goes for you. So if you're building a fractional CMO business and you don't want to waste years figuring it out the hard way, Fractional CMO School is open for enrollment, and we'll give you the step-by-step roadmap that I used to build my business to 6 figures in 6 months and then $1 million per year with a small team of 2. There's expert coaching, one-on-one support, and whether you are an aspiring fractional CMO or you're growing, you're trying to figure out how to scale your team or do the role in a way that doesn't lead to burnout, it is a great fit for you. And you can learn more at thecmooffice.com. If you love this episode today, here is what I would love from you. Take 30 seconds to rate and review the show. It helps more marketers and CMOs find this content. Hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're going to implement any of this or you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out in my DMs on Instagram. I would love to support you. And thank you for listening. I will see you next week.